violence that ISIS have been committing. And we were getting a lot of phone calls from Muslim women to say, we want to do something, we want to speak out about what we're seeing on the TV, what we're hearing about young British Muslims leaving the UK to join ISIS. We want to do something.
My name is Sara Khan and I'm director of Inspire. Inspire is a counter-extremism and women's rights organisation based in the United Kingdom. We launched our campaign, Making a Stand, back in September, and we had 100 women from across the UK attend that campaign, that launch in London. And what we heard women tell us was, please, you must come to our area. So that's what we're doing now. We're taking our Making a Stand campaign to 9 different cities across the UK, engaging with Muslim women directly and teaching them about extremism and how they can challenge extremism, why it's important for them as women to make a stand against extremism, and what they can practically do, whether as individuals or whether as a group of women, what they can do to make a difference and how it's so important for them to make a stand in this very difficult time.
Organisations like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, one thing they always say is the world is divided into two. You have the world of Muslims versus the world of the disbelievers. You're either a Muslim or you're a Kafir. You have to decide where you're going to live. So the extremists always divide that, have that view.
Terrorist organisations like ISIS, who claim to be Islamic, they very much use Islamic discourse, they use Islamic language. It's a religious language that they're using to encourage young people to join their violent cause. Now, for me, I see this as being it's a manipulation of Islamic teachings. You know, they pick out verses from the Quran, they take these verses out of context, and they try to create a whole ideological narrative based on a perverse reading of Islam to justify their worldview. So, for example, ISIS argue that it is a religious obligation to make hijrah to this so-called Islamic State. Many Muslims across the world have argued repeatedly that this ISIS is not Islamic, nor is it a state. But they also argue a very fundamental, the early discussion that took place in the 8th to 10th century in Islamic history, which was the idea that the world is divided into the world of Islam versus the world of the disbelievers. But they ignore history following on from that, which said actually, Muslim scholars said the world is not as binary as that. Actually, Islam is the abode of Islam is wherever you can practice Islam freely. But you find that Muslims, the ISIS, ignore all of that kind of history, and they have a very perverse view of the world. And so that kind of understanding has to be challenged. And it falls into the line of this argument when you have Muslim extremists say, oh, the West is at war with Islam, the West is at war with Muslims, and then they use religious arguments to try and back that up. So it's a political but also a religious argument which fuses together and which makes a lot of young people believe that this is Islam, and of course it's not. This is the 3rd event we're in Leeds today, and the response that we've had has been phenomenal. Women, for the first time, often feel that there's not a safe space for them to openly talk about these issues, and so through our campaigns we're creating that safe space for them. And many of them are sharing their experiences. They're telling us how within their own extended families, they've noticed their nephews becoming radicalised, drawn to extremism. We've heard stories of women, you know, about mosques and madrasas and how they've seen young children there being drawn to extremism and the extremist views being propagated there. Well, my organisation, Inspire, has for a number of years fundamentally believed that women are the first line of defence against extremists. What we've been doing through our programmes and through our campaign, Making a Stand, is teaching women how they can protect and safeguard their children from extremism, how they can make a stand and take a lead in challenging extremists. And some of that is by teaching women theological counter-narratives to extremist ideology. So if their children are spouting extremist rhetoric, women for the first time now feel they have the confidence to challenge their children's understanding in the home. You know, before we've even got to the agencies like police or other external agencies, if women have a better education of their own faith, they will be able to successfully challenge their children's understanding. And we've had women who've come on our programmes and said, because we've come on your programmes, we have been able to challenge our children's understanding, and we've managed to do that with success. So I think that's the first thing that we can do. But we can also tell women, if they need external help, if they need support, we tell them where they can go. We tell them where in their local area they can get assistance from, because sometimes you don't know what help exists out there. So we direct women and say to them there are other external agencies who can help you, who can help your children, and whether it's members in the community, whether it's members in the police, or other people who are there to help you and to protect and safeguard your children. But also what we're saying to women is that we want you to champion this work in your local area. We come and we tell women how, and real examples of women who have challenged imams, for example, who have been saying things like, oh, it's you must go and do jihad in other countries, or imams who've been preaching hatred about Jews or other faith minorities. And we know of stories where women have come together and they've challenged imams, they've challenged madrasas, they've challenged extremist preachers who are trying to recruit their children, and they've done that successfully. So what we're saying to women is, if women are doing it in other parts of the UK, we need to replicate those examples of good practice and show how women can be that first line of defence. I think the impact on families is really, it's indescribable. I mean, when you see them coming on TV and you hear the tears, and you see the tears of the sisters crying or the parents crying, I don't think any words can describe that. I mean, when I watch those press conferences, when I see those interviews, I mean, a part of my heart breaks because I feel for them. I think it's so devastating. For example, these 3 girls who left East London, they didn't even wish their parents goodbye. You know, mothers who have raised their children for 15, 20 years, who've looked after them and cared for them. You know, in Islam, we know that Muslims and mothers are so respected. And then you have this incident where young people are just turning their backs against their families. That's so heartbreaking. And this is one of the reasons why I do what I do, because I think, you know, this is preventable. For me, I genuinely feel that this is preventable, that as families, as communities, as parents, we can prevent our young children from being drawn to extremism. But we have to make a stand. We have to stand up and challenge extremism, because if we don't make that difference, you know, who is going to do it then? We have to. The onus is on us to make a stand and challenge extremism.